You know, every single day, security teams are just staring down this tidal wave of phishing emails. It's totally relentless. And for the longest time, the only way to fight it was this slow, manual, and just overwhelming process. But that's all changing. In this explainer, we're going to dive into how security ops are moving away from that manual firefight and into a way more automated defense, all to finally get a step ahead of the bad guys.
All right, so to really get a handle on this, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the sheer scale of the phishing problem. It's bigger than you might think. Then we'll walk through what it's like to be an analyst stuck in that manual maze. After that, we'll introduce the hero of the story, the automated playbook, and see what it can do. We'll also talk about what this means for the analysts themselves, and finally peek into the future of the Security Operations Center, or SOC.
Okay, so first up, let's really set the stage here, because saying phishing is a problem doesn't even begin to cover it. We need to understand just how huge and, honestly, how sophisticated this whole thing has gotten for the folks on the front lines.
And this right here, this quote really hits on something that affects every single one of us. You know those phishing emails we used to get, the ones with all the typos? Yeah, those are pretty much gone. The stuff hitting our inboxes today is way more sophisticated. We're talking about messages that look exactly like the real thing from brands we know and trust, and that makes them incredibly hard to spot.
And we're not talking about some small niche problem either. Get this. A report from Palo Alto Network's Unit 42 back in 2022 found that a whopping 40% of all security incidents start with a phishing email. Just let that sink in for a second. Nearly half of all major breaches, the front door was a single tricky email. That's the kind of skill we're up against.
So, you've got thousands of these suspicious emails flooding in. What happens next? Well, let's walk through the old-school manual way of doing things, this maze that analysts have been stuck in for years, where it's always a race against the clock.
It all kicks off with step 1, detection. An analyst has to manually dig through a mountain of alerts, just hunting for those first red flags. Is that a spoofed email? What's this weird URL? Did an employee report something? Any one of these could kick off this whole painstaking process.
Okay, so once they've flagged something suspicious, the real detective work begins. The analyst has to go and collect evidence from all these different systems. They're pulling logs, checking that weird link against threat databases, and trying to figure out, is this a real attack or just another false alarm?
And if it is a real threat, well, then it's an all-hands-on-deck kind of emergency. The team has to scramble to figure out how far it's spread. They have to find every single machine, every single user account that's been compromised to stop the attacker in their tracks before they can move deeper into the network. And all this time, the clock is ticking.
Now here's the crazy part. That whole three-step dance we just saw, an analyst has to do that for every single suspicious email. It's slow, it's repetitive, and let's be honest, when you're getting slammed with hundreds or even thousands of these a day, it's just not sustainable. No way.
So there has to be a better way, right? You can't just keep doing that forever. And thankfully, there is. This is where we change the rules of the game with automation.
And the core of this new approach is something called a security playbook. The easiest way to think about it is like a pilot's checklist before takeoff. It's a preset list of actions that runs automatically the second a threat pops up. This makes sure the response is super fast and super consistent every single time.
This whole playbook idea is a key part of something called Automated Investigation and Response, or AIR. Remember those first two manual steps we talked about, the detection and the analysis? Well, the whole point of AIR is to let technology handle all that initial grunt work automatically. And that, of course, saves the security team a ton of time and effort.
Okay, so that all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like when the rubber hits the road? Let's replay that exact same phishing scenario, but this time with an automated playbook running the show.
And boom, here it is. This is the real wow moment. The difference in speed is just staggering. That manual process, which could easily eat up 20 minutes, maybe even more, it's now done in less than 60 seconds. The playbook automatically checks all the clues, looks up reputations, and figures out the risk, all without a human having to lift a finger.
And it's really important to see that this is about so much more than just speed. Automation does a whole bunch of things at once. It enriches the alert, which means it pulls in all this extra data to give the analyst context. It orchestrates the response, like it can ping the right people on Teams or Slack. It can take direct action, like blocking a bad guy's user account. And it keeps all the IT tickets and systems like ServiceNow perfectly in sync.
Now, whenever you talk about this much automation, there's always a big question that comes up, right? Are we just automating people right out of their jobs? Let's just tackle that question head on. Is the whole point of this to replace humans with software?
Absolutely not. The answer is a huge no. The goal isn't to replace analysts, it's to empower them. Think about it. When you let the machines handle all the noisy, repetitive stuff, you free up the humans to do what they do best. They can focus on approving the automated actions, hunting for those really sneaky advanced threats, and spending their valuable time on real incidents instead of drowning in a sea of false positives.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. What does this massive shift towards automation really mean for the future of the Security Operations Center?
Well, what it means is a way more effective and, honestly, less stressful security operation. For starters, you're containing threats in minutes instead of hours, which makes the window for an attack tiny. You're also escalating fewer false alarms, which means your top experts can focus on the real fires. And maybe most importantly, your decisions become super consistent because you're taking human error out of the equation, even when things get really intense.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. The bad guys? They're already using automation to launch bigger and smarter attacks. So in a world where the attacks are automated, a manual defense isn't just slow, it's a huge liability. It really feels like we have to fight fire with fire. The question isn't if you should automate your defense anymore, it's how fast you can get it done.